Olá a todos, estou aqui novamente no podcast da SAESP, na verdade podcast e videocast. Sejam todos bem-vindos novamente. Meu nome é Vinícius Quintão, eu sou anestesiologista aqui do Hospital das Clínicas da Faculdade de Medicina da USP e estou aqui novamente com a nossa colega Faye Evans. Faye Evans is almost Paulista, Brazilian, right? It's the second time here. So Faye, it's a brilliant pediatric anesthesiologist from Boston Children's, of course, in Boston, and also a professor of anesthesia for Harvard Medical School. Also, Faye is the director of programs for the World Federation Society of Anesthesiologists, the WFSA, and we are very lucky that we have Faye as part of our editorial board of the Perioperative Anesthesia Reports. The Perioperative Anesthesia Reports is a diamond open access journal that is totally supported by SAESP, the Society of Anesthesiology from São Paulo State, SAESP. So I'm here with Faye to discuss open access. That's why the purpose of PAR to be an open access journal. So Faye, thank you so much once again.
Thanks for having me. Excited to talk to you about this topic. It's something near and dear to my heart.
Yes, great. So Faye, you are very involved with WFSA and also with several education activities globally, worldwide. So the WFSA published the Anesthesia Tutorial of the Week and also the Update in Anesthesia. So it's two different open access publications. And also among others, science and oriented products. Will you please talk us about WFSA, open access initiatives, and the importance of these initiatives to the globally education in anesthesia?
Sure. So the WFSA really has as a priority education and training. And, they believe that we need to provide education and training opportunities for our member societies. And so, as you mentioned, we have currently 2 education or publication type offerings. In addition, we have other types of training opportunities. But as far as publications, we have, as you mentioned, Update in Anesthesia and Anesthesia Tutorial of the Week, which are actually quite different publications. Update in Anesthesia, it's more of a traditional journal that receives articles and they get reviewed and then they get put into the journal itself. The journal is open access, which is great. So, and a lot of times for Update in Anesthesia, we'll have themed editions. So most recently, or a couple years ago, we did one on medical education. And so the education committee kind of was asked to put together a bunch of articles on medical education. We will have committee members and then other members of the WFSA community who are experts in education write articles for us. We've done the same for recently pediatric anesthesia. And then there are other themed editions coming out. I think there's another one coming out this year on wellness, which is great. In contrast to that, we have something called Anesthesia Tutorial of the Week, which is just an amazing educational journal, but it's different. It's tutorials. So it will basically for example, I was quite involved in the pediatric section.
Okay.
And so you'll have folks will submit topics. They'll get approved. And then there's a whole process by which they go about writing an educational tutorial. So it's really meant to be a short snippet on a topic. You're really only having 5 resources that are referred to. It's not meant to be an exhaustive review of the literature. And it has questions associated with it. But it's something that you could take on a topic and get a short snippet and kind of know what's going on. They are used all the time around the world.
Okay.
Really an incredible resource for trainees
Yes.
who let's say you're going to do a case for the first time and you want to, I know I was involved in one on one lung ventilation. You can go read the tutorial, go over it with your preceptor, and really have a basic understanding of the topic. That both of these publications are open access. And I think that is just makes it an incredible resource, because that way really anybody anywhere can access this information for free. There's no firewalls that they have to get through to get this information. So yeah, it's I think people who have had the opportunity to use this information really find it valuable.
Yeah. It's very nice because also the anesthesia tutorial of the week, we have this translated into Portuguese. So if you are not good comfort to read in English, so you can have access in Portuguese.
Yeah.
So that's also very interesting, very important. But there is no such a thing of free lunch right now. And so open access must be supported for someone else. You work in a very traditional, high quality academic center in the USA. And also I'm very fortunate to work in an academic center here in Brazil, Hospital das Clínicas. And we do have access to good quality education, quality material. So, but they support us here.
Yeah.
So how WFSA gets support funding to support this? It's probably the tricky part, right?
It is such a tricky one. We've been talking about this. How do you make these types of efforts more sustainable? Right now, for us, for our authors, because obviously the only reason we have these publications is we have people who are willing to volunteer to write articles or to write tutorials. And so we don't compensate them in any way.
Okay.
Which is a challenge, only because it limits you to who the people are who are willing to write the tutorials in the first place. Yeah. I think that we've been talking about this at the WFSA is how do you use these types of materials to help raise money so that you can do more educational type things and make increase access to other types of educational initiatives. So it is a big challenge. I'm going to kind of digress a little bit because I've seen some interesting models about this that I've seen people do that I think are things that we should explore.
Yeah.
One is, so I'm at Boston Children's, and we actually have a website called Open Pediatrics that has been supported by the hospital and even by our department over the years. But again, in order to, if you ever go on there, there are all these amazing tutorials on there that are videos that have been produced. So different than ATOTW, which is really more of a static document that you download. But these will be more kind of interactive e-learning type opportunities, which are great, but they cost money to build. You have to have a platform for them to live on. You have to hire instructional designers to develop them. And what they've done, in addition to having some internal support or getting grant funding, is they've started to make it, everything's still open access, but if you need continuing medical education credit, then maybe you have to pay for that for a small fee, which I think is not an unreasonable way to approach it. There are some folks who say, should you allow advertising? And I don't know if you've done that for your journal. If you look at best practices and you look at measures of quality, and there's some out there for online learning, the issue of having advertising is an issue. I think as long as there's not a conflict of interest, it's fine. But you do have to pay pretty close attention to that.
Yes.
But practically, things aren't free, and you've got to raise the funds from somewhere to really build a robust educational profile.
I agree. In Brazil, we do have two journals. The most traditional one is the Brazilian Journal of Anesthesiology for the Brazilian Society of Anesthesiology, SBA, in Portuguese. And the SBA, the society, supports the Brazilian Journal 100%. It's also a Diamond Open Access journal. But now, here at SAESP, we do have the PA, the Perioperative Anesthesia Report. It's also a Diamond Open Access journal. And we do believe that scientific knowledge must be available to everyone. But SAESP support us
Right.
100%.
It's amazing.
How did it impact in your decision as when I ask you to join us, to you accept or not to be part of this editorial board?
It definitely impacted it. I think when I saw that it was open access, I was like, I want to support this. So I think access to educational materials is challenging for many of my colleagues who work in parts of the world, especially in the low and middle income countries. There's a lot of firewalls to get access.
Okay.
And so anytime there's a journal that's willing to be open access, I think that that's something we should support. It's a model for other journals. But again, it's that balance of how do you fund it? And, so one of the things, too, we're doing at the WFSA is in the process of creating what we're going to call an anesthesia online learning community. The idea is to expand access to educational materials. And really the question is always, what do you add? And so we did a global needs assessment to really look at this issue and understand from providers around the world. And we have about 1,800 people who responded to our survey asking about their educational interests and needs, both attending anesthesiologists and trainees, and how we should try in order to kind of think about how to prioritize how to build this online learning community, which we intend to be open access. And one of the things I think is really important whenever you're doing anything open access is to make sure that you curate what already exists. And the reason I bring this up is that you do have this amazing resource that's open access. How do we at the WFSA partner with you so that folks around the world know about your resource? And how do you do that while still letting you maintain sort of your autonomy over the resources that you've created and get credit for it? And I think there's a balance there. Because what you don't want to do is create where things have already been created and just reinvent the wheel to get credit. You want to curate and then just create where things are needed. So I'm hoping that the journal will partner with the WFSA and really just allow another portal for people to have access to it and know about it.
Sure. It's a brand new journal. Yes. So now we are building our editorial board, but it's a challenge at the beginning because but we do have a very nice team, and once it's open access, Diamond Open Access, it's volunteer work for everyone. So that's why it's quite challenging when you ask for that.
Can I ask you a question about it? I think for those out there, I'd like to know, because I don't think I asked you this. Why did you decide to start the journal? What gap did you feel like it needed to fill?
Yes, tough question.
Well, no, because it's starting a journal, just like you said, you're not getting paid, and it's a ton of work. And like I said before, you want to curate and create where it's needed. So what's the gap?
So as I told you, we have a Brazilian Journal of Anesthesiology. This journal is 72 years old. This is very old. And the name was Revista Brasileira de Anestesiologia in Portuguese. And we used to publish in Portuguese. It's indexed at the PubMed, etc. But at the PubMed, when you do publish in English, you have your paper between parentheses. It's not English.
You're absolutely right. So it was in Portuguese only?
No. Yes, it used to be.
Okay.
But then we started to publish both in English and Portuguese.
Right.
And we didn't re-index it in English. So it was a 5 years ago initiative to re-index the journal 100% in English. So now it's 100% in English, and we don't have the parentheses anymore. And this increased a lot the access to the journal. And this is different for PAR because Brazilian Journal of Anesthesiology is more research.
Uh-huh.
We do have few literature reviews there. It's more for research. And the factor impact is increasing. So it used to be less than 1, now is almost 2, and less than 5 years.
Which is great.
So great.
Right.
It's a Brazilian journal. But the Brazilian journal is a diamond open access, and they received tons of submissions around the world, not from Brazil. Brazil actually is not the first one to submit.
And it's a diamond open access. And it's interesting you say that, because I will tell you, when I go to decide where I'm going to publish or where I want to submit submit like a paper, I definitely pay attention to whether it'll be open access, rather than having to pay an exorbitant fee, usually several $1,000s, to make it open access. And that's, I could probably get my institution to help me with that, but that's not true for most people around the world.
Sure, especially for Brazil, right?
Oh, yeah. Most people,
so
right?
If you publish like for major journal like The Lancet,
right,
for open access, is almost $8,000. Is too much for us. So then, when a Brazilian journal is no longer Revista Brasileira, it's 100% in English, indexed in English, they decided not to publish a case report anymore.
Got it.
And also, they decreased the number of literature review.
So there's a gap.
So we saw this gap.
I understand.
And Explain Brazil as a federation, the local regional anesthesia, they have the power, and São Paulo is so wealth. Then the last term, the last president, the last board, director of boarding of directors for SAESP, they decided to have this new journal. So this is a gap to fill, especially with case reporters and literature review.
And I don't know, because it's funny. I'm also one of the junior section editors for ANA, for the global health section for anesthesia and analgesia. And whenever somebody submits to that section in particular, global health, it is open access, which is amazing. It's incredibly generous of the journal. They also have a case report section, sort of separate.
Yeah.
But I don't know of any other case report literature review journal that's open access.
Yes.
So I think that will be definitely fill a void that's there. Yeah. And give an opportunity to folks who maybe it's really important that whatever they write be able to be accessible.
Sure.
So to anyone. Yeah. So that's great.
Yeah. So last question for you.
Yeah, very.
So we probably answer, but I have to put this in just one answer. How do you think open access journals and other initiatives like Anesthesia Tutor of the Week, etc., contribute to the advancement of safe and quality in anesthesia and low and middle income countries? So
it's essential. I can't tell you the number of times my colleagues who are working in those settings, who are just amazing people, will reach out to me and say, hey, there's this article. Can you get me a copy of it? It used to happen every day. I would say the ability to share articles prior to COVID, we were all super careful about sharing those on platforms such as WhatsApp because we didn't want to get in trouble with copyright. I would say those restrictions have loosened up a lot with COVID. Now, whether or not they should or shouldn't, materials are copyrighted. So you don't want to abuse the system.
Yeah.
But I think for the only issue is going to make sure that people know about this journal. And so that, because if you do it and they don't know about it, it's kind of, you haven't done anyone.
Yeah.
You haven't really helped anybody. So I think it's going to be just as important for you as you get this going and once you start to have publications to get the word out that it's there. But I think the inability to access articles on topics that are timely and relevant and new for many providers working in these settings is a real barrier. And I think in the end, who really is going to benefit from this is going to be the patients, because I think they're going to be able to provide better care for their patients with more updated information rather than having to rely sometimes on a textbook that could be something that was donated to them, 5 or 10 years ago. And as we know, even a brand new textbook sometimes can be outdated. I mean, it just takes forever to get it published. So I think, I think they'll really benefit. But again, the challenge is going to be to get the word out there. I think one thing for me that's even more exciting is it's coming out of Brazil. So it's a South-South collaboration and I think that is to be commendable.
Yeah, great. So thank you so much, Faye, again, for coming to Brazil, to our meeting, another podcast, and also to be a valuable partner of the PAR, the Perioperative Anesthesia Report. And please feel free to comment our podcast, and I will recommend this in Portuguese, right?
Okay.
Então, pessoal, aproveitem esse podcast para entender um pouco sobre as iniciativas de literatura, boa qualidade de material de educação em anestesia, disponíveis na WFSA, que é a Sociedade Mundial na verdade é a Sociedade Mundial de Sociedades de Anestesiologias, né? A Federação Mundial de Sociedades de Anestesiologias, ao qual a SBA faz parte, ao qual a SAESP é uma parceira, e também, claro, para acessar a nossa revista, né? Então, entre no site da SAESP, em cima do site da SAESP tem um botão escrito PAR, clique nesse botão que vocês vão acessar a revista. Lá vocês vão encontrar os artigos publicados, como publicar, como submeter, né? Vai encontrar o nosso editorial board, Faye and I, we're there. E também quero convidar todos para escutar esse podcast ou então assistir a esse videocast. E até a próxima. Thank you.
Thank you.